Hey, so I'm back from Gartner Data Analytics in London, and I have some thoughts that I would like to share over a cup of coffee. So let me get started making my coffee, and then we can get into it properly. Because the first thing to say is that for once this year, there was very much a single unifying theme at Gartner, which was context. Every single talk, every single vendor to a first approximation was there talking about the need to supply context, meaning a stable source of truth and data, specific data about whatever use case, to AI agents for them to be successful. And the difficulty in doing that, and how, of course, each vendor's solution was the one true way to get that. So I could talk about that, of course, for several of these videos, but actually the more interesting thing to me is the next step. So Gartner, like many other analysts and indeed many other outlets, have recognized that there is a problem with the business case for AI. As much as we see huge gains in individual productivity from these tools, those have not shown up in the actual enterprise-wide bottom line. And this gap is starting to show in pretty big ways. CEOs, according to Gartner's figures, are, I believe, 73% committed to AI as their top priority for 2026. But only 11% of CFOs had seen or were confident of seeing, based on the numbers, any concrete return on all of that investment and excitement. Now, at one level, yeah, you do need to make a big bet ahead of where the numbers are if you're trying to get some competitive advantage. But on the other hand, a gap that big, that begins to be a problem. And so the talk for the 3 days of the conference was very much about how to bridge that gap, how to get concrete, measurable results. And one big theme which came up over and over again in my conversations with analysts and with other attendees was the need to move away from the previous idea of automation, which was very much centered around the idea of automating an existing process as is, and instead turning the whole thing inside out, looking at the outcome that we're trying to achieve, and then how these new capabilities can potentially help us achieve it in a way which may or may not have anything to do with how it's been done up till now. And so that is a really interesting framing for the change that we need to go through. If we think of AI and agentic AI as traditional deterministic automation, well, it doesn't work. Famously, the problem with hallucinations, etc., these things are not deterministic. If you try to use them in deterministic ways, then you get failures which range from the hilarious to the tragic. But we already have deterministic automation. We can use deterministic automation where it makes sense, couple it with the agentic AI capabilities where those make sense, and then bring in a human to cover the bits where the human is good at. And this is important because another piece of the gap in perception of value is that there has been this idea of the human in the loop. That don't worry about the places where the AI might go off the rails, ignore its prompts, etc. We'll have a human in the loop who will have oversight and who will, crucially, have ultimate responsibility for the outcome. Now, that doesn't sound like a great position for the human, and lots of people have been saying so quite loudly. A different framing which is starting to emerge is the human in the lead. But that's not just a cosmetic change of label, especially since we're keeping the same acronym. We in IT, we love our acronyms, HITL, we're just changing the meaning of the L. But it is a fundamental change in process design. It's long been known, even in pre-AI days, that any system where human error can cause catastrophic failures is a system which has a flaw in its design. The problem is not the unfortunate human who happened to be at the controls the time that it went wrong. The problem is a system which was unable to deal with a minor error by the human or was not robust against obvious failure modes. And so human in the lead as a systems design and enterprise architecture approach is a fundamental shift. And then if you couple that with what I was just talking about starting with the end in mind, not with the current status quo, then you really get somewhere. As the previous role, the role today for most people, is they are papering over the gaps in systems which are not fully joined up. How many business processes rely on, I download a report from here and copy and paste the bits into a spreadsheet over there, and then I munge the data there and upload it to somewhere else, and so on and so forth. So this is humans plugging and papering over the gaps in a disconnected system in a way which was necessary because of the disconnection, because of the gaps. Now with agentic AI, we can plug a lot of those gaps, we can plug them easily, we can supply an integration fabric which can give the AI the data that it needs to have a unified holistic view. And so then the question becomes, okay, now what? It can't just be, we can now generate the same spreadsheets, the same reports, the same dashboards faster and with lots more words and with more frequency. It's got to be something more than that. So that's a challenge, something that we should all be thinking about. Vendors, practitioners, analysts, and I can confirm, based on the 3 days at Gartner Data Analytics, that is very much a live conversation. So let's have a coffee, kickstart our thinking, and see where we can wind up by this time next year. Maybe that's too long a time frame. By the next one of these videos, let's see if we start to see a glimmering of some answers. Cheers.